Bonjour, je m'appelle Doncoy, enchanté, quel honneur. I didn't expect too many people. Non, il y a 2 heures. Non, il y a 2 heures que je viens d'arriver.
D'Europe?
Oui. Oui.
D'Italie? Pas trop fatigué?
Non, ça va.
Merci.
Eva. Non, c'est un peu long parce que pour aller à Taïwan. Oui, c'est direct maintenant avant. C'est nouveau ça.
Moi, j'arrive de Nice. Je suis au Cannes. Je vous prépare. Nice à Doha et Doha ici.
Oui, non, mais ça dépend. Ils m'ont envoyé le ticket de comme ça. Ça va.
Vous avez fait à Milan ou Milan?
Ah oui, c'est le genre.
Des bons petits Bardolino.
Il y a plusieurs bons vins dans la région.
J'ai découvert que le Bardolino, c'est un peu français. Pas français, gaulois. La Gaule, la vieille histoire.
Ah, je ne sais pas.
La Gaule.
C'est une histoire française.
Je sens qu'on va s'entendre.
Non, je ne sais pas.
Même cette histoire de faire du rosé à côté du lago di Guarda.
Peut-être. Mais des deux côtés, il y a du rosé. Donc,
la manière dont il le fait.
je ne connais pas cette tradition.
J'ai lu l'histoire de la Gaule.
Je n'ai pas vu, non, peut-être. Quand il y a des histoires comme ça, je ne sais pas si c'est vrai ou pas. C'est bien pour raconter des choses.
Pour moi, vous parlez avec mes amis de.
Mais non, mais c'est bien.
Bien sûr. Oui, votre conjoint vient de chez nous.
Non, au contraire.
On va commencer, non?
Oui.
Un minute. Ferme. Ouais. Tu mets. Alo. Alo. Lời đầu tiên, SSA cũng như là Việt Nam Best Sommelier rất là vui khi có sự có mặt của tất cả các anh chị, quý khách và cũng như là 13 bạn thí sinh đã rất là xuất sắc lọt vào vòng bán kết của cuộc thi Việt Nam Best Sommelier First Edition 2024. Để bắt đầu cho cái chuỗi sự kiện Việt Nam Best Sommelier 2024, chúng ta sẽ bắt đầu bằng một buổi Master Class vô cùng đặc biệt và vô cùng thú vị. Đó là mình sẽ học về cái cách mình thử nếm. Thì đây cũng là một trong những cái skill đối với trong ngành sommelier cực kỳ quan trọng. Và để bắt đầu cho chuỗi sự kiện của Việt Nam Best Sommelier, chúng ta rất là hân hạnh có bác Giuseppe Vaccarini. Thì chắc là Vi sẽ không giới thiệu quá nhiều thêm về bác nữa, bởi vì bác mình có thể gọi bác như là một huyền thoại sống trong ngành sommelier. So to start, I would love to say thank you to Mr. Giuseppe Vaccarini. Actually, he just came from Italy like 2 hours ago, direct flight. And to be here today to conduct the masterclass for us to learn more about the tasting skill. So this is workshop number 1, and I hope you will enjoy, learn a lot, and you can ask as most questions to Mr. Giuseppe Vaccarini as possible. Okay, so please can I have a big applause to start the masterclass.
Xin chào to everybody. Everybody speaks English, understands English. I'm sorry I don't speak Vietnamese. I should, but I don't. After a long time. I'm very happy to be here, and it's an honor for me to be here, first of all, for several reasons, and also to to meet some friends, of course, that I didn't expect. So it's very, very kind of you to be here. Anyway, I'm going to talk about three different things today regarding the sommelier profession. If you don't understand something, because my English is an English with Italian accent, please ask me. Okay, don't be worried to make a question, either when I'm talking or after, as you prefer. I don't mind. So, but ask, don't be afraid, because I know that in Asia people are always afraid to make questions, they never know, but you have to do it if you want to learn. I suppose that something that I'm going to tell you today, you know already, something or more, even more, but it's a different point of view of several things that we do through the sommelier in the world, in different countries. And I'm starting with the wine tasting. So the way of wine tasting is often different from country to country. because of different culture, different traditions. But what I'm going to explain today, it's a methodology that we have created in Italy since a long time, and we still use it. Okay? So if you go to France, you will find something a bit different. If you go to Japan, it will be a bit different. But at the end, it's a wine tasting. So what you have to learn is, first of all, a methodology. It doesn't matter which one it is, but the most important for a sommelier is not just to learn a methodology, it's how to talk, how to express and describe all the different sensations that you find into the wine. This is the most important if you want to go on with the profession, but also it's important for the competition and for the examinations. If you want a certification, especially from ASI, it's important to know that for sommelier it's important to talk about wine, about beverages in general, but the wine is specific. All words that you will see here, they are words that they come from our terminology in Italy. So it means that you can use also other words, different or similar terminology, it doesn't matter. The most important is to be coherent using words. Can be something completely different, because if you are describing a white wine, you can't talk as if you are describing a red wine, for example. But so you have to use coherent words, and it doesn't matter which one you use. The most important is to use words that makes people to understand what you are saying. This is the meaning of all this that I'm going to explain in a few minutes. So what a sommelier must know, must learn a technique, because nobody is born knowing already how to taste, especially wine, especially in a country like yours where you don't have the culture about wine. So here is something quite new, something unusual, something that really you have to learn if you want to know how to approach this kind of beverage. And the technique is very important. And I didn't invent the technique, because I learned myself the technique in France, first of all. And then, of course, I did a lot of training in Italy. So you have to know that everybody has subjectivity. So when you taste the wine, you can express something that is what you think personally, in general. But to make a good wine tasting, you have to do it in a way objectively. It means that it must be something that everybody has to agree what you are saying, has to understand, has to accept your words. So to be objectively, that's why we have to learn a technique, the methodology, how to do it, and the right words, of course. So important is to learn it, because if you see this picture, if I ask you what you think about this picture, I will go fast here, but everybody can say something different. What does it mean? That this is your subjectivity. You see something of this picture. It's the same for the wine. You will taste, or you will understand, you will detect some sensations, but not all of them. That's why, especially in wine competitions, there are several people doing the same tasting, because the scores, the points, they will make an average of the scores to choose which one is the right, the final scores for the wine, because of the subjectivity. Because if it is only one person, it could be credible, maybe it's not exactly what other people think. That's why it's always important when you do a wine test to do it with other people, not only by yourself, at least during the period that you are learning something. So important is the level of perception. Sensei, you have to learn how to understand the perception. The perception is the level of the sensation, that you feel any sensation, either with the eyes, the nose, and the taste. So the level of perception is different from person to person. It's not exactly the same. That's why we have to learn how to do it in a better way. And most important for everybody is to know that there are some conditioning during the testing. The first one that is the most important is called appearance. Appearance, when you see a bottle, you see a label, immediately you think, if you know a little bit of wine, you think that wine is what is written on the label. what I'm going to taste. But often it could be different, could be something else. That's why never look at the label, do always blind tasting to learn. That is very important, because through the blind tasting you have to force yourself to memorize all the different sensations that you find to the wine. And then once you've memorized everything, as you do with a computer, for example, you can go back and it can help you to find what are you looking for. So appearance is very important. It's important to not take care about the label, especially at the beginning. And when you have learned to do it, it doesn't matter if you say label, but you know what, when you are testing, you have to concentrate yourself only between you and and the wine glass. Then the other one is the spirit, especially when people are talking, are tasting together. And tasting together, it's enough that one person says a word, for example, about an aroma, about a taste. You can be sure that everybody can smell the same aroma and the same taste, because this is another strong conditioning. That's why when we are tasting, never talk between each other. Only at the end, you can compare and to discuss about sensations. Remembering that sometimes people, they don't find the same sensation because of the different sensibility, as it is different, so it doesn't matter. The most important, as I said at the beginning, must be a coherence on what you find and the words that you are using. And then the last one are the habits. Habits are made by traditions and by the fashions. Traditions are very strong in some countries, and also the fashions. You know, it's like for wearing things. No? People, they wear all the same things. They want to wear what is exactly the moment, and so on. It's the same for the wine. There are moments. I remember some moments in Italy, for example, the moment of the Müller-Thurgau wines, the moment of the fashion of the Barolo, the fashion of Prosecco now, for example. There are some periods on which wines are more, there is more on demand on those wines because they've made the fashion. They change, and then if something remains, it means that the wine was interesting, was good, or whatever. That's why when you are tasting, never think about your own taste, what are the habits, what are the fashion, because if you do something like that, of course, your judgment will be not credible at the end. And then at the end, what you will be able to do the right communication of the sensation and to the wine and to be understood by everybody. So, don't think about, be concentrated, don't think about conditioning, and try to find the right words to make the right description to be understood. Now we are going to talk about some some things that are very important for the examination. So you know what it is, maybe you know what is the spectrophotometer. So I have to read it in English, it's not easy for me sometimes. Some words are quite difficult. It's an essential tool for many quantitative and qualitative analysis that is used in a laboratory to find what? To measure, in this case, to measure the colors. So that's why there are some tools that you can do it. But for us it's different, because you have to look through the color and understand what is the color, which are the intensity of the color. So the view is like this. So you have to know when the visual examination is probably the less important examination of the wine, because also blind people, they can do it. But we are lucky we can see the color, and the color help us to understand, to guide us to the next examination, to the olfactory and gustatory examinations. That's why the visual stimulation are very important, because through the color we can understand, for example, the most simple is if it is a white wine, red wine, sparkling wine, if it is young, if it is old, if it has an oxidation, whatever. And sometimes we can also understand which kind of varieties are used to make that wine, because there are some varieties that give a lot of color, especially red wines, a lot of color. Some other varieties, they give just a little bit of color. So just looking at the color, we can have an idea, but of course we have to verify through the olfactory examination and the taste what it is exactly the wine. That's why it helps to guide us in one direction, but not only this, because through the color through the visual examination, we can see the limpidity of the wine. That is very important, limpidity, because everybody expects to see a wine that is clear, that doesn't have any sediments, because we will not accept if there are sediments. That's why there is also the decantation of the wine sometimes because of the sediment. Especially nowadays with the technologies that are used into the wineries, it's important that wines are presented very clean, very limpid, without any sediment, perfectly. So limpidity is important, and when we see it, we can imagine, we understand that wine has been worked through the process of vinification and the aging into the winery on the proper way. This is very important. Of course, because if it's not limpid, there could be some problems. And there are some words that we are using to describe the limpidity of the wine. So these are some words, as I said. Now we will see sometimes 5 different words for the description of a sensation. In this moment, for the limpidity, we can use this kind of words. But I repeat, you can use many others, of course. Transparency, what is it? The difference between a wine clear and transparent. Clear, I said, when there are not, when there is nothing into the wine, no sediments into the wine. Transparency is a bit different, is the intensity of the color. So the intensity of the color that could depend on the variety, or sometimes because of the process of vinification. So when the skins, they stay for a long time, for in maceration, of course, they leave more color to the wine. And we use only 3 words in this case: very transparent, quite transparent, or deep. Sometimes deep when we don't see anything. Because looking through the glass, you can see the others, especially with white wine, you can see immediately through the wine. So the limpidity is immediately, but with red wines, it's a bit more difficult sometimes. The color, it depends from the pigments present into the skin, the grape varieties, as I said, the level of ripeness of the grapes, and the soil. The soil we'll see later, it's very important. And also from the climate that, that is changing quite fast in the last years, and the enological techniques that are used into the wineries. And through the color, it is possible to perceive the sanity of the grapes, of course, the level of the evolutionary state, and how can we describe these colors. So we have, in this case, for the white wine, 4 different levels of color that we can use. The first one, greenish yellow, it in general, of course, it's not fixed for all the wines. Greenish yellow when the white wine is young. Many wines, when they are young, they have some yellow color, some greenish hints that it shows the level of how young is the wine, still young. That kind of greenish could remain for a few months, sometimes for a few years, depending on the variety and how the wine has been aged. Just a level over could be straw yellow, golden, and amber. All these colors, they could be used for different kind of wines. It's not only the evolution, sometimes it's just the evolution until amber, but in this case it means that the wine, when it's amber, is not good anymore because it's oxidized. But for some varieties, it's their typical color. I'll give you an example. If you have a fortified wines like sherry, like port, like Marsala in Italy, the normal colors could be golden for the young wine or amber. It is their wine, their color, always. But if we have another kind of wine, like Sauvignon Blanc from Loire, Soave from Veneto in Italy, the color, when they are young, is greenish yellow, and after 1, 2, 3, 5 years, could be straw yellow. If it turns into golden or amber, of course, it's not good anymore. But if you have a Chardonnay, normally Chardonnay starts often just a few months only greenish yellow, just for many years could be straw yellow, and some very excellent Chardonnay that have taken a lot of sunshine. They come from very hot countries. They are already, they turn into golden. Very nice gold color. But making the description, what happens? That you can see from these arrows that sometimes you can use both levels of words to make the description. We can have, for example, a straw yellow wine with some greenish yellow hints. We can have a straw yellow wine with golden hints. It means that the wine, in this case, a straw yellow with greenish yellow, it means that the wine is still young. If it turns into a little bit of golden, it's getting mature, it's aging, or it has few years, and so on like this. You can use both level of words. For the rosé wine, it's here there are only 4 words for the description, but for the rosé you can use many more, because making rosé wines, every wine, especially for some, I could say for some denomination, appellation, we have the color fixed. But for all the others, there are hundreds of rosé wines. There are hundreds of different rosé colors, depending on the sensibility of the taste of the wine producer, but of the enologist. But often it depends on the variety that is being used to make the rosé wine, and for how long that variety is being in contact with the skins. You know, the color comes from the skin, so it depends, few hours, many hours, how long the maceration, and then you get the color. Often, the most often, what is the most diffused color is salmon, onion peel, peach, cherry, and some very light colors. Not so often we have the coral or the claret. This, repeat, it depends on the winery and which kind of wine they want to produce. Because for rosé, what is attractive, first of all, is the color. And then is the aroma, and then is the taste. You have to know that some red varieties are excellent for making rosé wine. Some others, they just make a rosé wine because the market maybe they ask for a rosé wine, they make some rosé wines. Some are excellent, some are not so interesting. And also rosé wine is a wine that is quite difficult, in our cuisine at least, to pair with food. Because for a sommelier, it's important always to think about pairing when he thinks about wine. What am I going to do with this wine? I have to pair with something. So do I have something that I can pair or not? Or is it just a fashion sometimes? Or, you know, rosé wines, often they are sold, the best season to sell rosé wines is summer, because they are not considered white, they're not considered red. It's just people, they drink because of the color, and because they are, of course, they are dry, but mainly because of the color. For the red wine, it's the same criteria. We have 4 different colors in this case, but you can use more, of course. Purple, ruby, garnet, and orange. The first 3 are quite common and were used often. The 80%, 85% of the wines are ruby. Some are garnet. Very rarely are orange, because it's already a bit old. Just a few varieties, and only when they are very young, they can be purple. They can have a purple color. Depending, and also the intensity could change depending on the variety, of course. And as I said before, also from the soil and vinification and process and everything. I'll give you an example with the Italian variety. Do you know Barbera variety? Maybe yes, maybe not. Barbera, when it's young, in the first 6 months, is purple. And sometimes also dolcetto. Garnet color. I suppose you know Nebbiolo variety. Variety, the first few months is ruby. After 4-6 months is garnet. It turns to garnet very fast, and then stays garnet for a long, long time. So you see, you have to know a little bit also the varieties, but color, they could change. I repeat, the most common is the ruby. You will find ruby almost in all the wines in the world. Of course, changing the intensity and also the way to make the description, because a ruby could have purple hints, violet hints, blue hints, depending on the vinification and the aging. A ruby could have also garnet, like Sangiovese could be, when he's young, ruby color with some garnet hints, and then after 1-2 years, it's only garnet, of course. And the same with the orange. Orange color is often, you find that when red wines are getting a bit old, sometimes it's just a garnet with or ruby with orange hints. It's normal because it's an effect of the aging of the wines. But if it is only orange, it could be not good anymore because it's too old. Too much oxidation. Now, what is the consistency? Consistency is the, if you have a glass of water, you turn the water into the glass, as the sommelier, the taster, they do sometimes, the water goes very fast, turns very fast into the glass, because it doesn't contain any alcohol. A wine contains also alcohol. And consistency, it means the level of which the wine turns into the glass. So the consistency is made by the alcohol, in fact, and sometimes also alcohol plus sugars, residual sugars. And of course, consistency, mainly made by the alcohols and polyalcohols or sugars, sometimes they help, and they help the structure, of course, but of course with a different taste, because polyalcohols, they make just softness, sugars, they make also sweetness. So you have to know this difference. And that's why on the description of the consistency, we can use words like fluid, quite dense, substantial, dense, in English, of course, because also this is another problem with the languages, because with French, some words, they're not exactly the same. So that's why it's possible to learn the way to taste, but when you have to use other languages, that's why you can use different words, because in all languages they're not using the same way. For example, fluid. In Italy, we don't use the word fluid for the wine, the word fluidity. We don't use the word viscosity that is in English, in French sometimes, because, for example, viscosity is a word that we use for the oil for the motor of the cars. It's a word we don't use because viscosity is something negative for olive oil, for example. That's why we don't use that word. So depending on the country, sometimes you have to adapt the word that you are using. And that's why we can accept many other words, because we can understand that it's not the same for everybody. The effervescence is typical of sparkling wines that could be natural or added. It's possible to add also carbon dioxide to the sparkling wines, but when it is, it must be declared on the label. So it means that nobody does it, because nobody will say, I've added some carbon dioxide. Even sometimes they do, especially for the fizzy wines. Anyway, what do we have to do when we have a sparkling wine? Sparkling wine, normally we talk about white sparkling wines, because there exist also some red fizzy wine, at least, not really sparkling. They are a bit different because they are not exactly the way of analyze and describe all the sensation. It's a bit different. So let's talk now about white sparkling wines. So we have the visual examination. We have to look for the limpidity and vivacity. So you have to know that when there is carbon dioxide into the white wine, the limpidity is more bright, because carbon dioxide brings brightness to the wine, to the color of the wine. The aromas, they are sometimes just a bit more intense, but a bit different than the normal wine. And on the gustatory examination, what happens in the mouth? We have a tactile sensation that is made by the carbon dioxide that is a bit, it increases the perception of the acidity. It makes sometimes a longer taste or aftertaste, and it reduces the smooth sensations. Also because when we have a sparkling wine, normally we drink it cold. And when a wine is cold, we'll see later, the perception of the smooth sensation is lower, of course, because we have to increase the perception of the hard sensation, because it's how we appreciate a sparkling wine. How to describe the the mousse or the froth or the CO2. Normally in a sparkling wine, and when I talk sparkling wine, I talk about the reference, it's always champagne. So everybody knows what is champagne in the world. So it's easy to explain. Valors mangel può dir ça. No, pleasant. Sorry, I'm joking. No, it's important because champagne is the example, is the reference for all the sparkling wines. And what we are looking for into the glass of the sparkling wine, that the bubbles, they must be, first of all, abundant, a lot. This is how it should be, how it should be presented. And what we expect, in fact, because if you have all the others absent, vanishing, creating a ring, is not really interesting. It's just, or it's not a good, we think it's not so good. But we have to be careful because sometimes it's just the glass. We have three different glasses. You pour the wine, the sparkling wine, into the glass, and you will see in one glass we have a lot of bubbles, in another one we have a little less, in another one we have nothing sometimes. It's just the glass. And how the glass is being washed and dried. This makes the difference sometimes. So we have to know how to wash and clean and dry the glasses. If possible, always by hand, under the water, if possible. I know that sometimes you don't because of several reasons, but it's not good because all the liquids that are used for washing, they are not so good for the glass to help to make the start point of the bubbles. That needs something not perfectly, I could say not clean, but not something really smooth into the glass. So the way to describe the bubbles is like this. First of all, you have to look at the size. The size, they must be very fine or very fine at least. How can we do it? Just by the exercise of our eyes. We can see immediately if they are big, too big, or small. Smaller they are, better it is. Why? Because when they are very small, it means that the re-fermentation into the bottle is being very, very slow through the time. That's why it makes the bubbles very, very, very small. Then we have to look also at the number. Of course, it's not possible to count them, but we can see immediately if there are a lot of bubbles or not. This is the number. We must expect to have always a numerous or very numerous bubbles into the glass. And for how long? For as long as possible. So, and we look at the persistency. So for how long we can have the bubbles into the glasses. Normally we don't do it because when we have a good sparkling wine into the glass, we drink it. We don't have time to think about all these things. But for a sommelier, it's important to look and to understand the quality, because a sommelier has to always talk and see if there is a quality into the wine and into a sparkling wine. Okay? Is it all clear until now? Now let's see. Oh, very important how to hold the glass, and then we pass to the next. Often we can still, I say this because it's one of the things that sometimes more than sometimes it happens. People, they take the glass like this. Never do it, because a sommelier never do it. Always like this. Okay, like this or like this. Okay, must be clear. Because you can see also sometimes I can see sometimes in some films, some movies, actors, they hold the glass like this. Why? Because actors, they do what they tell what they have to do. Sometimes they don't know, they are not experts. Some of them are experts. But if you look, for example, at films, movies, James Bond, always like this. Drinking always good champagne, good wines. Why? Because the writer of the... the name of the writer of... was a gourmet, a person that loved good wines and good food. So he knew how to do it, and that's why in his film he wanted an actor that did the properly. No, sorry, Fleming. Fleming. Jan Fleming. I remember in one of them, there was this, one moment, somebody was asking, they were on a train, and James Bond said, okay, you can choose, he had the guest, you can choose a wine, and he chose a white Chianti, the guest. And then after a few moments, so James Bond said, "You are a spy." I said, "How did you understand this?" "Because you choose a white Chianti that doesn't exist." It's funny, but if you know, oh, he's right. Okay, now let's see the next one. Most important is the memory. As I said before, at the beginning, memory is very important. How to memorize aromas? It's not so easy, of course. It's just exercise and time. Exercise and time. So it means that you can't learn. Yeah, you can learn in few days. You read the book and you learn everything. But to be a good taster, a good sommelier, it takes time. It's not something that you can learn in few days only or a few months. It takes time because of, not only because of the tasting, but the tasting is one of the most important parts of the work of sommelier, because the tasting, why is it important? Just open a window. Because it's a way, it's an education to the good things, to educate to the quality, to choose the quality of the products. And to learn this education, it could take few months, few years, depending on you, of course, but it's impossible in few days. So it takes time to make the experience of the different products, to memorize everything, try to remember everything. It's a really good exercise, but once you have memorized all this, you can recognize everything. In fact, one of the tests of the certification 2 and diploma of ASI, there is a test that is called, and also in competition, is called recognition. No, sorry, in English, identification. Identification. Identification is a test in which you have some glasses, few glasses. Sometimes there are even black glasses. You don't know what there is inside. Sometimes you see the color, and I have to repeat, don't be conditioned by the color, because it could be a trick. You have to smell. You don't have to taste the products. And only if you have made the right, a constant exercise to the recognition of the aromas, you can recognize the product. I can tell you that the 80% of the sommelier, at the beginning, they fail because they don't do the exercise. And identification is not by taste. The most important is and will be always the aromas, the smell. And I give you my personal example that is quite interesting for how I did to memorize all the sensation by nose. Okay, now there is another tool that is used for the. Okay, but most important for the aromas, you have to know that they come from the soil, different compositions of the soils. They come from the varieties. They come from the climate is very important. It comes from the process of vinification, the aging. So many factors that can make the development of the different aromas. But also the service and the temperature. Very important for a sommelier is the service. Often we don't talk enough about the service because we think the most important is only wine tasting. Is one of the most important, of course, but it's not the most important, the only one. Because even me, sometimes when I meet some people, they ask me, so they say, "Oh, you are sommelier, so you are good in wine tasting." And they think it's only wine tasting. It's not only wine tasting. It's wine, it's beer, it's sake, it's other products, it's coffee, it's tea, everything. Nowadays, it's everything. Why is it everything? Because when the sommelier was born, or more or less, in France, but not only, well, there is a long history about the sommelier and how he is now, of course, we talk about the last 200 years about the work of sommelier, and now we could say it's also a profession. The sommelier was somebody that just had to do the service. And so we forget the service because we think it's not so important. But it is important. In fact, in our exams and the competition, we have always the test about the service because it's really part of the work of the sommelier. And the service well done make a huge change with the customers. And in the service, we have also one thing that is very important, the service, the temperature of the service of the beverages, not only the wine. Why? Just think about two different things. If you drink a coffee, I know that how you drink coffee in Vietnam is different, but if you drink coffee cold, it has a different taste than when it is warm. Just think about espresso, that is Italian. Espresso should be drunk around 65 degrees. If it is 50 degrees or 80 degrees, 80 you burn your tongue, and 50 you feel the acidity or the bitterness only. It's not so good. So temperature is very important. Let's go back to the wine. Wines, we have different kind of wines, as you can know, you can imagine. If they are served at the right temperature, and then we'll go back in the next PowerPoints with the temperature, it could change completely the perception of the different sensations, either with the nose and on the taste. That's why it's very important to keep an eye, not only an eye, how to at the right temperature during the service. And that's why the service is very important for a sommelier. Okay, now I will go a bit fast here. So the aromas that could be primary or varietal. Just how to explain the difference. Primary or varietal, you can use both words, they have the same meaning. I suppose you know what is the variety called Moscato. It's the typical aromatic variety that is taken as a reference to say this is a variety, is an aromatic variety. Why is called aromatic? The word aromatic itself, it's important to know when to use it and when to not use it. Because aromatic stands for, the signification is for the variety that comes from a grape that if you smell and taste, it will have the same taste and the aromas that you will into the wine. So it will not change. It's not a neutral variety. You take, I was talking before about Nebbiolo or Barbera. When you have the grapes, they don't have any aroma and any special taste. It's just a fruit with acidity and sugar, that's all. But Moscato, it has aromas that you will find again to the wine. So this is a variety called varietal or aromatic. It's very important to remember this. So how to use this word. So into the aromas, we can find this kind of aromas during the exam. The secondary are aromas that you can have either pre-fermentation and after fermentation of the grapes, of course, because mainly all the aromas, they are created through the process of vinification, and that's why after the vinification, you have the aromas of the wines. You can start to smell some kind of aromas that you will find in the next years into the wine. And then, of course, after this, we have through the fermentation, there are some modification of the composition of the wine. Now, post-fermentation, of course, evolution and aging. And aging, there are what are called the tertiary aromas, those that, for some wines, when they stay in the bottles, especially in the bottles for many, many years, you get different kind of aromas. It's because of the evolution that could be short or long, very long for some wines. And that's why, and how we recognize the best wines, because there are those that they can also, you can drink them when they are young, almost young, but you can drink them after 10 years, 20 years, sometimes more years, until there is not a limit, of course, because I tested wines even over 1 century, 100 years. They were still good, depending on the wine, of course, the vintage. So many, many factors that would make the change. So this is what are called the tertiary aromas. But we have to talk also about the barrels, because vinification could be done nowadays, wineries, they use a lot stainless steel, cement, back to cement also for some kind of wines, but also a lot of oak. Oak has always been used as a recipient, a tool for keeping the wine for the exchange with the oxygen for big barrels in general, for a few months or for a few years, depending on the wine. But nowadays, the barrique is it's also a bit of a fashion. A barrique, it's a smaller barrel that has the origin from France, and it has been used for many centuries, would be since the Roman time, because the barrique, they were created in France. And for other reasons, I will tell you in one moment. And nowadays they are used all over the world. They are not produced only in France, but the most famous, for the high quality, they come from the different forests of France. Because in the small barrels, wines, they can age in a different way than the big barrels. But you have to know that not all the wines, they need small barrels. So that's why not everybody can use, or they use them for these reasons. So what are the big oak? So the big barrels, they are made with oaks that traditionally they come from Slavonia. Slavonia is a region of Croatia in Europe. But all what are called barriques, they come from France, from Hungary in Europe, from Romania, and from also United States. I don't know which other countries they come from. But they're all different because different oaks. The only important difference that all the names that you can see here, Allier, Tronchet, Massif Central, they were from this forest from France. They do it since centuries. It means that all these trees, they are planted to grow very high, very close one to the other one. They grow for 50, 70 years before to cut them, and then they have to be replaced immediately. So that's why there is a turnover to keep going on to produce the barrels, of course. And what is important for these barrels, all the wood is not the same because different forests, different soil, they don't have the same exchange of oxygen that is important for the wine, but also depends how they are roasted inside. Nowadays there are several different way to roast inside the barrels, but you have to know that the wood of this oak is kept under the weather in open air for a few years before to be transformed into a barrel, into a barrique. They have to decant all the resins that are inside that are not so good for the wine, of course. And then the wine, the oak gets very, very dry, very, very tough. That's why the barrel, it's a bit round, a little bit. To do this kind of work, they need the fire. That's why they are like that. And the fire could be used slowly, low fire, medium and high. That makes a different roasting inside. And this roasting is what gives sometimes the spicy taste, aroma and taste to the wine. Here we have an example how they are made. And of course they are not used so long as the big barrels, the big oak barrels, because they are used for wines that they don't need this kind of small barrels with the exchange of the oxygen so fast, so important, because they have other qualities. They don't need it. Why? So the barrels they were created, they were used at the beginning into the Bordeaux area, for the simple reason that you have to think also the climate was different a few centuries ago. And also the varieties like Petit Verdot, now there is not used too much. Also like Cabernet themselves, they were often a little bit green, even after the harvest. So difficult to mature these wines. That's why the small barrel help them to mature correctly and well. So this was the beginning of this. Now they're using a different way. But you see, that's why it became important for many wineries to use this kind of barrels, barrique, to improve the quality of their wines. In fact, almost all the great wines in the world nowadays, they have been into the barrique, maybe not 100%. Often wineries, they do a blend between one part of wine that has been into the barrique, some and some not, to make I could say, an improvement, but not to change too much the taste of the wine, because keeping the wine to the barrique, it could change also a little bit the personality of the wine sometimes. Not always, sometimes could be. Okay, this is the intensity. The intensity of the aroma. So when we take the glass under the nose, the first thing that we have is the intensity, the volume, the quantity of aromas that they come into the nose. That's why it's called intensity. You know, I suppose you know already that if you go on the website of the ASI, there are some grids, they're still there. I checked the other day, didn't find them. Maybe they were working on them. These grids, they propose a sort of methodology of tasting, but there is not everything as I'm telling you today. So maybe if you go there, you see that something is missing there. It's missing. In fact, it's not missing. It's a way to explain some words. But for example, there is not. Sometimes you don't find always the intensity and the persistency. It's something that maybe one day will be added. I don't know why there is not, but don't tell me it's a mistake. It's not both of we didn't do a mistake. It's a different way of presenting the wine, the wine tasting. So the intensity, and when the aromas are in a wine, you find different kind of aromas. There is not a unique aroma that you can smell. We get the complexity. All great wines, they have a complexity into the aromas. It means they have different kind of aromas that could be floral, fruity, spicy, and others. It makes a complexity. Now we go into detail. Remember always to talk about the quality of the aromas and quality of the taste. And the quality could be, for a good wine, of course, could be fine or excellent. Sometimes you can accept medium fine. Bouquet. This is a suggestion that I can give you, the bouquet. The bouquet is another French word that indicates the complexity of the aromas, if you want. The word bouquet was used to indicate a bouquet of flowers, different kind of flowers makes a bouquet. But into the wine taste, it indicates a complexity, some complexity of the aromas, but in this case it's used also to indicate the origin of the aromas. So is it a wine that is young? It has primary aromas or aromatic aromas sometimes, and evolving, it has secondary bouquet, a tertiary bouquet. If you want, there is also the oxidation bouquet, because some fortified wines, they have also oxidations that are classified in a different way. So you can use the word bouquet just in your mind, or you can use it as a word also, to help you to classify some aromas and to go in the right direction for the recognition of the aromas. Description. So aromatic, as I said before, for aromatic varieties. Wine. So what is the opposite of aromatic? Because it's an English word, because in some languages it doesn't exist at all. So, but you can use it because we understand what you mean. So aromatic when it comes from an aromatic variety, but if it doesn't come from an aromatic variety, the wine is winey. So it has aroma of wine, in fact. It's a way to use a word, because a wine, it doesn't have a real aroma of wine, because it doesn't exist, a real aroma of wine, but it's a way to explain that it comes from a neutral variety. So the aromas, floral, of course. That's another important point. Which aroma to recognize? I discovered by myself, going through the different countries in the world, that in some countries people, they recognize some aromas, and in other countries they recognize other aromas on the same wine. Why? Because it depends of your experience, of what you have in your country. If you don't have some kind of, I don't know, here we have a rose, for example. If you don't have roses, you don't know what is a rose. So you can use other words to indicate that kind of aroma. Because all the aromas, some aromas, or many aromas, they come from the same molecule, in English, molecule. So the recognition could be different from person to person. So don't worry, even in that moment, if you say different words and different recognitions, it's not wrong. And also it depends on your sensibility, of your training, of your exercise. So it can be always exactly the same. And that's another reason why when you have to do a good tasting, better to compare with few people what you have recognized. So floral, then there are very common, the fruit, different kind of fruit. So there are fresh fruit, there are what we call tropical fruit, and others. There are so many. There are berries, there are dried fruit. Stone fruit. See, you call stone fruit, yes. Yes, there's many fruit that if you don't find them, if you don't know, it doesn't matter. So you just try to find what you know. It's better. Here, and there is one word that we use that is fragrant. Fragrant indicates something fresh. It could be used either for flowers or for fruit. Something really fresh, really, really clear to understand. And it reminds sometimes to the fresh bread, fresh French baguette. You can see there are a lot of references with France. Also, but the pictures come from France, not from Vietnam. Then there are some vegetal aromas that are typical from some varieties. You can see the peppers, the tomatoes, the grass, just the fresh cut grass, mushrooms, champignon de Paris, in fact, or some mineral aromas that reminds the matches or petrol sometimes. Spicy you have a lot here, of course. Many, you can see the cinnamon and others. Or sometimes it's an aroma that is not so nice if if it is intense, but sometimes a little bit it doesn't disturb at all. That is the painting, the fresh painting, or some medicine sometimes. In some ways it could happen also this. But there is a key word for the quality to use when you want to indicate the real quality of the wine. That is frank. When it's frank, into description of the aromas, frank aromas, it means that the wine is exactly what it should be for that variety, for that appellation, for the aging in the right moment. So frank, it's a word that is used also by the enologist to indicate this. So we can use it because it has exactly the same meaning. But also typicity. Typicity is something difficult to explain and to describe. Because what is typical? I give you an example, a very simple example in Italy, because in France I don't have the same. Barolo, it's a wine that has always been aged into huge, big wood barrels. Always. And that people think that Barolo, the typicity of Barolo is that. But with the fashion, it has been a fashion of the barrique, that many wine producers of Barolo, they used only barrique for many years. Now they've been back. They use it just a little bit. Barolo changed completely its characteristics. So when you tasted Barolo, it was different. So this is not Barolo, it's something else. But people, they say, wineries, oh, this is the new Barolo. This is the typicity of Barolo. So we had the old one, but the traditional one, and the new one. So which is the typicity? Difficult to say, is it this one or the other one? Now, what we say when there are two completely different things, the reality, the good one is in the middle. So half-half. But you have to recognize that Barolo has some typicity, and some aromas, and some taste when it is in big barrels, because in fact Nebbiolo doesn't need the small barrels. But if you want, you can use, they use in fact barrique, but they don't do 100% now. They do 50%, 30%, 70%, depending on the vintage. And then to do a blend. And so, in fact, you can recognize again the characteristic of the old typicity of Barolo. Now I have some varieties with some aromas that you can easily recognize. Also here it's difficult to do a classification of the aromas that you can find into a variety, but these are the most common and often you find this kind of aromas. So Cabernet Franc you can recognize because of fresh grass, black currant, black pepper. Cabernet Sauvignon, blackberry, cherry, blueberry, vegetal, green and red pepper. Chardonnay, green fruit, apple, banana, acacia. Acacia is a flower. Marzemino, it's a Italian variety, violet, cherry, and herbaceous, fresh almond. Merlot, cherry, blackberry, ripening red fruits, herbaceous sometimes. Muscat, there are several varieties of Muscat here for the yellow one, ripened apple, pineapple. Pink Muscat, spicy rose, vicine is a flower. Müller-Thurgau, tropical fruit, vegetal. Pinot Noir, raspberry, blackberry, and violet, and also something else. Sauvignon, vegetal, fig and tomato, tomato leaves and mineral. And here we will go back to the barrels, barrique with refined in wood, into the description, because through the description you can say this wine is being aged in barrels. If you recognize the level of roasting, you can say it. As you can say when you taste the coffee, for example, it's the same. Recognitions. So through the recognition is important when you do the tasting. Try to recognize all the different aromas, because the description of the aromas helps to understand which is the variety and also the aging of the wine. Now, before to finish this PowerPoint, I want to say my experience, personal experience on the recognition of the aromas. When I started you have to think that in the 60s, when I started to work, in Italy didn't exist the sommelier. Then came one from France. It was half French, half Italian, Gian Valenti. It was the founder of the ASI. Okay. And at the beginning, he worked in, you have to think Milan, if you don't know Milan, there is the cathedral and what is called the Galleria, where there was the most important restaurant at that time, one Michelin star. In the other side of the square, there was the other restaurant where I used to work, 2 Michelin stars. It was the top one at that time, but with a huge wine cellar. So I started to work there, but there was not a sommelier there. There was a chef de rang working as sommelier, but he was not a sommelier. So after 1 year, Gian Valenti came there, so that's why I met him and that's why I knew him. But me, what I did, because I wanted to work as a sommelier, because when I started to work, I was 14 years old. That time was possible, now it's not possible anymore. And for me, the wine was white or red. That's all. I didn't know anything about wine. And when I saw all those different wines, Italian, French, from Germany, I said, why all these wines? Why? What is different? So I wanted to taste, but it was forbidden to taste the wines. I was 14 years, so it was not possible. So I thought one way to do it. As people, when they used to drink wine during a meal, but often they didn't drink all the wine. They always left a little bit into the bottle. So before to go to clean the table, I used to take a tray, and on the tray I used to put 1 or 2 coffee cups. And before to clean the table, I used to pour the wine into the coffee cup. Going back to the back office, before to put it for the washing, I used to do just very fast, because I couldn't show myself, smelling immediately, and try to memorize what it was, to understand And then I started to understand why a wine was different from another one. So not only the label, but the wine itself was different. And that's why this exercise I understood after a few years, because when I went to France to study in Bourgogne and in Loire about the wines, I was the best of the class. But I didn't know why, because I was the only one recognizing all the wines, even French wine, because I had an exercise on French wines, only because of the nose. So as it was my experience, I didn't know if it was a good experience or not enough so for everybody. When I started after a few years to talk also about other sommeliers in other countries, everybody did the same, not the same way, but they thought it was important the aroma more than the taste. Because the taste, we have 4 tastes. Aromas, we have hundreds of aromas. That's why it's more difficult to memorize all of them. But some of them, for specific wines, of course, once they are memorized, you can recognize the wine immediately. Even nowadays that I don't do the same exercise anymore, but some wines I really recognize them just by the nose. So it means that you have to memorize and try to remember, of course. And that's why it's very important, the identification, the exercise of the identification in competitions and the exams. And this is the wheel of Malgard, sorry. This was the first study made by the California University in 1984 about the aromas of the beer and the wines. It was the first study, scientific studies about how to classify and recognize the aromas into the wines. That is very important. This is still the reference for all the studies about the olfactory examinations. Now let's go to the taste. After we'll taste the wine, after this. So the taste of the wine, as I said, is more simple than the aromas because there are only only 4 tastes, just a bit more, 4 main basic tastes to remember: the sweet, the acid, the salty, and the bitter. And in the middle of the tongue, the tactile sensation. And back again with the thermic sensation, the temperature. That I will repeat later this. So in the mouth, on the tongue, we have the different pups. Some of them, is what is said, to make it simple, this is more complicated, but to make it simple. These pups, they have different forms, different shape into the tongue, and they have different perceptions. That's why some of them, they look like mushrooms, like glasses, or like something very, very thin, and they have this different perception. And they're situated in different parts of the tongue, in the top, in the border, and in the rear. Now, what is the smoothness? How can we recognize the smoothness into the wine? The smoothness is made by sugar, alcohol, and polyalcohols. Sugars that could have different origins. You have some. So what we feel into the mouth from the alcohol, if you just taste just the alcohol, you feel some sweetness. Just to make an example, if you taste vodka, that it's a quite neutral spirit, the main taste that you have into the mouth, sometimes it's something that means it seems like sweetness. This is the effect of the alcohol that gives 3 different sensations: sweetness, smoothness, and warmness. In the mouth, you have to think about the effect of what we have of the component of the wine, the effect that we receive to make the right description. The polyalcohols, as I said before, they make mainly the smoothness, and they help to make the structure. This is the level of the sugars, but this is for the sweet, for the sparkling wine, so I just go on. And this is the words that are used for us, but of course not everybody uses this kind of words, indicating the level, also the level of alcohol. A wine that has low alcohol, it has light, the sensation in the mouth is very light. 10 degrees, slightly warm, white warm, 11 degrees, warm, 12 degrees, and alcoholic, 14 to 18 degrees. Of course, this is not mathematical, it's not scientific. It's just an indication, so the numbers could change, of course, especially nowadays that all the wines, they have more alcohol, because we can go easy from 6, okay, but 12, 14, 15, 16, and over, of course, because of the change of the temperature. But in the words, they're still the same, of course, just to indicate, just a reference. Polyalcohols, when there are always into the wine, and of course, if there are not enough polyalcohols, the wine is more. You feel more the acidity. It's more harsh sometimes, and especially in young wines. And when we think about young wines, when they are white, you feel more the acidity. When they are red, you feel either the acidity and tannicity. You feel the roughness of the tannicity that is there. Service temperature, we'll go back to the temperature now. So this is for all wines. The low temperature reduces the sensations. This is for any beverage. So that's why it's important to know, to understand which is the right temperature to feel the all sensation. And the high temperature, or higher temperature, depending on the product, of course, it enhances sensations. But also here there are some variations that we are going to see in a moment. Sharpness, when the wine is sharp, it is because of the acidity, tannicity, and some salts. Salts not always, depending where it comes from. Some acids are different acids of the wine, of course. Tannins. What they make the acids, they make a lot of salivation. Tannins is the opposite. Tannins, they stop the salivation into the mouth. And the perception of the wine is the roughness, the little bit of dryness, and sometimes a little bit of bitterness. And when there are some mineral salts. Description of the acid could be flat, but is not, of course, a good wine. Quite fresh, sometimes. Fresh, or very fresh. Acidic when it's a defect. So the three words that are used quite often could be quite fresh, fresh, and very fresh, because we think about the sensation that the acid gives into the mouth. In some languages, the word acid is not used because they think it's not a nice word to be used for the description of the wine. Personally, I don't know which other, we use acid, as in France, we use acid, so which other word to use. But anyway, we talk about the sensation that is given by the acidity. So that is the freshness. So the word freshness is more indicated probably for the right description of the acidity. That changes, of course, depending on the evolution of the wine. Tannins is the same. They could be soft for an old wine, quite tannic for a mature wine, tannic for a ready wine, ready, so you still feel the tannins there. That means the wine has a good potential. The astringency when it is too young to be drunk, so you have to wait. Then the mineral salts, slightly sapid, insipid, okay. Quite sapid, savory, salty. This is typical of only from some soils, different soils that would give some saltiness into the wine, or more than the mineral. Let's go back to the temperature. So low temperatures, as we said, enhance the sensation. High temperature decreases the sensation. Now it's the opposite of what I said before. Now we'll see why. You have to know that the variation of the temperature, for the smoothness, for example, what happened? Why do we serve the white wine colder than the red wine or the sparkling wines? Because we want to feel the perception of the acidity, of the freshness. Why? Because making the wine colder, refreshing, we reduce the perception of the smoothness. So, because the acidity, you always feel the acidity, but the smoothness you don't feel anymore. So that's also there, we have to find the right temperature, right freshness for the white, because all the wines, white wines and sparkling wines, they don't have the same structure, they don't have the same maturation into the bottle. Some of them, they need 8 degrees, some of them 10 degrees, some of them 14 degrees, depending of the structure, of the aging, of the varieties. So many factors that a sommelier has to know when he has a wine. So you feel more the acidity, and here we have the smoothness. We have is the opposite. If we want to increase the smoothness, we have, of course, to increase also the temperature. And this is another reason why the red wines are served at higher temperature than a white, because in a red wine we have acidity and tannicity, the tannins. Both of them, they make a lot of acidity into the wine. So you can try to serve a red wine cold, like a white wine. What is the perception in your mouth? You have the acidity and tannicity. And wine is not, it doesn't seem so good in the mouth. That's why that enhancing the temperature, the smoothness increase also as a perception, and we get a balance of the taste in this case. And then the wines, red wines, it is much better into the mouth. So we have to remember that if the temperature changes, the perception of the acidity will never change. So in fact, what doesn't change as a perception is the acidity. What changes is the smoothness, depending cold or warm, or not so not cold, that makes the balance of the taste. You have to remember this. And then the balance. I've been just talking about the balance. I make a question, but I give you the answer immediately. When people, they say, all people, they say that they like a product, or a product, they say, this is good. Just think about, as a technician, I could say, why do they say this? But they don't know why. But we have to know why. Because any product, solid or liquid, has a balance on the taste. When it has a balance, we say it's good. But we know it's because of the balance of the taste. So the balance of the taste of the wine is very important, because all the wines that have a good balance, they are mostly appreciated by any customer. If they are not balanced, we have to know to who you are giving the wine. Maybe you have to explain what it is before to give, otherwise they say it's not good or they don't like it. And that's why we use the 3 words to indicate the balance of the wine, because it's important. And the structure. So the structure, all the wine, they have a structure depending, again, soil, variety, vinification, aging, and we can use some words to make the description of the body. And also, into the description, we should talk also about the smoothness and the hardness of the sensations. Which are the sensations that are smooth? They are the alcohol, polyalcohols. See how it works. It explains very well how they should be together to make the balance of the wine, in fact. Okay? Once the wine, we have made the description of the wine, so the balance of the taste, how it's made, we have to talk also again about the persistency, so the length of the taste that remains into the mouth after swallowing. And this is a very important point to classify the quality of the wine. Just to explain this point, because to also explain the quality is not always so easy. Once, more than once, in Burgundy, I went to study some wines there, and the one question was, how can you recognize a Grand Cru from a first cru or a village or a regional appellation? And then through the tasting, it was very clear. A Grand Cru in good vintages or not so good vintages, it has always a longer persistency than the first cru or a cru village or a regional one. The length, the persistency. That's why they talk always about the caudalis, so the length of the persistency. This is an indication of the quality of the wine. And the best wines. I remember another tasting I did once in Bordeaux with all different sauternes, and there was one in all tasting that was always the best one. But of course I didn't know, because the length was always longer than others, always. So that makes really the difference. That's why some wines, they are better than others, and they have such an important reputation because, in fact, they have something different. Nothing to say, you can't, it's the only explanation that you can give. It is the real one. So the quality, it's important to define the quality, because we always talk about quality. If we have a bad wine, are you going to drink it? No, I don't drink it. But if it's good, not. Life is short, better to drink only good wines. All the others just live for other people. They don't know sometimes. Final consideration. This is very important, this point. Either for exams, very important for exams, and for competition. Because often we have seen through the time that sommelier, they do the wine tasting, and after they finish the gustatory tasting, they stop. But as a sommelier, you have to do more, something more. It's not finished in that moment. You have to talk about, very important, the final considerations. What are the level of the evolution? So is it a wine that you can keep in your cellar, or you have to sell? For how long can you keep it? This is the first one question, at least. You have to think immediately. So you have to talk, this wine has good potential, doesn't have good potential, and for how long? And what else? The harmony. Is a wine that has an harmony between the visual olfactory and olfactory and gustatory examination, or not? It's important, the harmony, because it makes a difference on the quality, of course. And you can talk about the quality and the evolution, as I said, young, immature, ready. These are the words that you can use, mature or old. So the aging potential was here. How long to keep a wine, or this wine? From which grape, especially in a blind tasting, from which grape variety, which blend sometimes, because some wines, Bordeaux wines, they are issued by a blend, so maybe you can recognize sometimes them. Now, the soil, very important. Here I wrote something just to remember. The composition of the soil plays a fundamental role in determining the characteristics of a wine. It makes an influence about all the characteristics. And now, which are the most important soils? When you see it's difficult to find, or not often you find only one kind of soil. Soils are always a mixture of different kind of minerals, of course. Sometimes you have some only one of them, but it depends on the regions. So here I wrote in Italian and in English. So all these kind of soils are those that makes the difference between the wines. Because if you plant, nowadays you find, for example, Cabernet Sauvignon all over the world. But what makes the difference? The soil, the climate, the vinification, the process of vinification and aging and so on, and of course, the experience of the wine producers. Because more experience they have for some varieties, more the wines is different than others. Give you the example of Pinot Noir from Bordeaux, from Burgundy. Everybody tries to make an imitation, nobody can do the same. So this is also because of the experience. Because Pinot Noir is made in Burgundy since 2,000 years, the best in the last 5 centuries, but 2,000 years against less than 1 century, sometimes you can feel the difference. It's not exactly the same. Because it's like when sometimes, especially in this kind of classes, some people, they ask me, why don't you call the wines with the name of the variety? Why? Why you call, I used this, I was talking about Barolo, I talk again about Barolo. Why do you call Barolo and not Nebbiolo? Because Barolo, you can produce only in Barolo. Because if you go back what I said today, soil, climate, variety, tradition, experience is what selling, is also the selling is very important, commercial part, and everything makes the difference. It can be Nebbiolo. Nebbiolo can produce everywhere. Barolo can produce only there, and it's different, in fact. And this is for all the great wines in the world. It's not important, the variety. Yes, it is important, but not so important. It's one part of it. It's one part of the name of the wine that makes that wine. And this is what is very important for a sommelier to know. Otherwise, everybody could be enough to have 5 varieties in the world, and it would be enough. But it's not like that. Then for a sommelier, another question could be, especially if he has to buy the wine, cost of the bottle, so value for money. Which one do I have to buy? At which price do I have to sell it? So nowadays we talk more and more about this part, commercial part of the sommelier, like the selling, and then we'll talk later about the selling. It's very important. Technique of vinification. There are several kinds of techniques nowadays, so every winery has his own recipe to do it. But anyway, these are the most common that you have to know at least, how to make the vinification. Surface temperature, again, to use the right temperature. Very important also the glasses. And that's just one trick how to talk about glasses, because there are not many shapes that are easy to describe. The most common are tulip, flute, or ballon. That you can, 3 words, I can describe everything. But the best that I suggest to do it is this: when you have to talk about a glass you have to do it. For a wine, there is only one good reference in the world. Do you know which one it is? Don't answer all together. It's very easy. Riedel. I suggest always to use the word, the glass is produced by Riedel, for the simple reason, there are many other factories that produce very good glasses, of course. But for a test, to make also the jury to understand, or the public, to understand what you want to say, it's better to use Riedel as a reference, because Riedel has produced, I don't remember exactly, 50 different shapes of glasses. Each one is a name of a variety, because it has been studied and tested on that variety. So if you buy, if you want to serve Chianti, you have glass for Chianti. You have glass for Bordeaux, glass for Burgundy. Even for some variety, the Pinot Noir, there are 3 different glasses from Riedel. Young, old, or don't remember which one now. So you see, yeah, it's the best and the best reference to explain what you want to say. If you don't know which kind of words to use, Riedel, glass. So everybody will understand what you want to say, and you will not make any mistake. And for a sommelier, it's important also the matching. Wine. So when you have a wine, you have to think which kind of food can I suggest, or the opposite sometimes. I have a food, I have to choose the right wine. Because if you have to make a suggestion to the customer, sometimes you don't have to go to the customer and say, you have to drink this wine because it's the best. You can't do exactly like that. You must have a choice in your mind to suggest this and this and this. The choice could be for varieties, could be for price sometimes, could be for other reasons that you want to do it. But always to think which are the best matches for the wines, either with your food, that of course it will be excellent, but also with food from other countries, taking as a reference the most common or well-known dishes of other cuisines. First reference is French cuisine, then Italian cuisine, of course, but others, you choose some dishes from Japan, from, I don't know, from which kind, from Spain, I don't know, those that they have something that is well known also abroad, not only in their countries. Because if you travel in Europe, everywhere you go, you have different kind of dishes and different kind of wines. So you can't remember all of those. But some of them, they are very famous everywhere, so you have as a reference in your mind for, in case you have to make a suggestion. Because, you know, in all tests, written tests or competitions, there are always questions about matching. So you have to think about which wine for which food. You can't just think about only one. You must have a huge reference in your mind of dishes that you can match with wines. And now we are going to do the tasting before to pass to the next. No, one thing first. Okay. Now, this is a tasting, just to show, that has been done for, I call it technical didactic tasting. It's a blind tasting. When you learn a methodology, it's like when you go to school, you start to learn the alphabet and then you start to make the words, so slowly, and then you develop the use of the words. So it's a real one that I've done it because I wanted to show something that was clear for everybody. So using the words that I explained before on the previous PowerPoints, it's a description of a wine. It's technical, it's correct, but for a sommelier, it's not enough. So this is the beginning, okay? It's almost a little bit schematic, okay? But it could be okay, this is correct. Now, this was the wine Amarone del Valpolicella Classico 2011. The words in red are the words that were also in the other slide, of course, but you see, words, there are more words, so there is more description about the tasting, as it should be for a sommelier. So exactly, you have to use these words, even for the tasting. If you don't use, for example, now we make you another example, clear example. If you don't use the words, for the jury, for example, for people that are going to do the correction or the evaluation, they don't understand exactly what you want to say. So that's why there is the color, the hints, the word bouquet, the intensity, the recognition of the different aromas, Then there is the balance, the word balance, the freshness of the acidity, the tannins, the long, so the persistency, the kind of persistency of it is. So using the keywords, they are like it's a sort of keywords, password, I don't know what to say, that if you use them, it shows that you know what you're talking about. Then all around there are other words to support what you are saying. So if you go back to the other one, you see, it's exactly the same. I use some of these words that are already there, but the description is much more descriptive. I don't know if I'm clear. So much. This is how it should be, to make a very good description, because either in exams or competition, you have to do this. Okay, not wrong, you can do it, but if you do this one, so for the first one, if you have a note, could be 6 because it's okay. This you have 10. So much more. Because this is exercise, of course. Only with the exercise you can do it. Okay. Now we can start the tasting. Okay, now you will have the wine, just one moment. And if you have questions, please ask questions. Then the second part will be about the ASI certification and the exam and diploma. So important, the first wine is a Prosecco Brut DOC. It's a, I could say, a simple Prosecco, because there are 3 different appellations in Prosecco. Why there are 3 different appellations? Because, Prosecco was produced in the area around north of Treviso, the town of Treviso in Veneto region. And what happened a few years ago, that Italy lost a process with Hungary about the word Tokai. Because we have a variety in Italy that is called Tokai. It's a variety. In Hungary, they have a wine that is not only Hungary, also in Slovakia, that is called Tokai. So Hungarians said they've been the first, so they wanted to keep the name. Italians said, no, we have a variety, we have to keep it. In fact, they did, for more than 10 years, the process went on. They decided, in Europe, they decided that the word Tokai would have been used only by Hungary. Following the principle, like in France, the same criteria, that the origin, the name of the origin, is more important than the variety. Okay? So this is the first fact. Now let's go to Prosecco. Very close to, between Slovenia and Croatia border, Italian borders, Trieste, there is a small village called Prosecco that doesn't produce wine since at least 1 century. It doesn't produce any more wine. The word Prosecco was used in the area of Vicenza for a wine that is called Prosecco, of course, and to the variety that was called Prosecco. Traditionally, it was called Prosecco. As they didn't want to risk to lose the name Prosecco like it happened with Tokai, they decided, this is not the only reason, but the main reason, to enlarge the area of production of Prosecco that was already in other areas, of course, going very close to the Slovenian borders, including the village of Prosecco, to keep the name of Prosecco. This was the main reason. Enlarging the area, of course, the quality of the wine is not exactly the same. So that's why they had to make a difference between the level of quality of the Prosecco, including also the tradition, of course. And that's why they decided to have Prosecco DOC for the main area, that is the most common Prosecco, could say, and then the other 2 Proseccos, Valdobbiadene and Asolo, the OCG, because specific area of production of this kind of wine with a variety that is not called anymore Prosecco, but is called Glera. So this was a technical reason to do all these kind of changes, but to make, in fact, better, but also to produce more. I have to say also this, because the number of bottles now is around 700 million, 700 million bottles. Everywhere you go in the world, they offer you Prosecco. Even if it's not Prosecco, it's Prosecco. Okay, anyway, this is, so Prosecco, DOC. As for all sparkling wines, the most important is to watch the moment that the bottle, you are pouring the bottle into the glass. Why? Because you have to look at the froth, how much there is. And for being a good sparkling wine, you must have a lot of froth immediately that goes away quite fast. This is how it should be, to indicate the freshness of the wine. Then you can see, we have seen before. Now, of course, I didn't see it when it was poured into the glass, but now you can see the bubble. They're quite small, so they're fine. Not many in my glass, I don't know in yours, because they're not all the same, the glasses. But anyway, for Prosecco, it's not so important as for the real sparkling wine or for champagne. Then what is important are the aromas. First of all, Prosecco must be always young. It's not a wine to be aged. You have to remember this. It's a wine that is produced in mainly 3, 4, 5 months. It's ready because it's made in big vats. And it's a wine to be drunk in 1-2 years. You can keep more if you want, but it's not it's not what it should be, because the appreciation of Prosecco is because of the freshness of the aromas. The fruity and flowery aroma, because of that is good. And because it's light in alcohol. The originally Prosecco was a wine that has had between 10 and 11 degrees maximum. Nowadays it has a bit more, but it has never been a wine to be drunk with more degrees. In fact, in origin, Prosecco was a wine that was the wine only for Veneto area, and it was drunk through the day, through the whole day, until the I could say the end of the 80s. It was just the wine, a local wine, I could say. Just everybody, every time you meet somebody in the street, let's go to have a drink. It was called Ombra. It was a small glass. Ombra, it means shadow, because you drink just a little bit. But the problem was that everybody had to pay one turn. At the end was one bottle minimum every time. But having only 9-10 degrees, it was okay. Nowadays, for 12 or 13 degrees, sometimes it's a bit much. Anyway, Prosecco it has always been a wine to be drunk for aperitif, in general for aperitif. That's why it has become quite famous to make the spritz. But it was a tradition in that area, so it was something that was done since these 2 centuries already. Now it has been developed. See, with Aperol. With the beginning, it was only with Aperol. Aperol and Prosecco, but almost the same area. Of course, then Aperol was bought by Campari. Campari is a big group. They bought also wineries. Campari, now they sold all the wineries, but they bought also wineries, so that's why they made a lot of commercial things. And then it has become famous. So the color, you see the color. It's a very bright and straw yellow color. Of course, you have to look on the white paper, otherwise you don't see very well. On the aroma in my glass, because they are mainly fruity, little bit of flower, more fruity, quite fresh. Quite fragrant, not fresh in the nose. On the taste, you can feel immediately it is dry. It has a good freshness and acidity. I can talk really about minerality, because Prosecco normally doesn't have any minerality. It's just acidity. Medium smoothness. Doesn't have a lot of structure. It's a light structure all the time. It must be like that. And the persistency, it's medium. It's not too long. It can be long for. It's not like Franciacorta in Italy or Champagne that are much longer. But of course, the variety are completely different, because all excellent sparkling wine, they are produced with important varieties like Pinot Noir or Chardonnay. So that it makes a huge difference with Prosecco, of course. Prosecco, as I said, it's a wine to be drunk as aperitif at any time of the day, any hour. It's not something that you have to wait for the lunch or dinner, as it was tradition. Just what is called nowadays, it's called. There is the fashion of what is called the street food. But street food in Venice has 2,000 years of tradition with Prosecco. So it was something normal to do, something to eat and drink, just like that. So I lived a few years in Venice, so I know this kind of tradition, but exactly like that all day. So nothing has been invented. Just change the name, fashion, make a different fashion. I think it happens in every country. There is something like that, I think. So this kind of Prosecco, you see now it's not cold enough. Should be served for the right temperature. Could be around 8-10 degrees. And as I said, aperitif, very light food, salads. That's all. nothing else. Because you can't really expect to drink this one, especially with important food, because it doesn't have the structure to make the right match. The second one is a Soave, classico. Soave is produced east side of Verona. It's an ancient area of production. It's an area that is a volcanic area. And you can find also into the wine some the origin of the soil. It's for the acidity, mainly for the acidity, but it's called Soave because the village is called Soave. That in Italian, Soave means smooth, velvety, and the wine it has this kind of characteristic. The variety is Garganega variety, but the smoothness of the wine should be, now I haven't tasted, but it's what you expect from a wine that is called Soave, so smooth. The color is quite uncommon for a Soave because it's gold, nice gold color, very gold, it's very nice to look at, but often it's not so intense, this color, it's more yellow straw color. This is probably, it has something different that I don't know, but I've seen the origin. The origin is a really volcanic area, that area. Okay, now I understand why it's different. This one, it has been into barrique. You can smell the roasting of the barrique. The roasting, I think it seems like a high roasted barrique that is very clear there. But anyway, it shows very well also the mineral aromas. You can smell the minerals. You know, when you light a match, it has this kind of smell that comes from the soil, volcanic soil. And I suppose now, let's see the acidity. It has both acidity and smoothness. And I say also it has a good balance because the smoothness is there until the end, with the persistency that at the end, the length, it is quite long. So it has intensity, it has quality into the aromas, quality into the taste. Even if it is into the barrels, that small barrels, but it changes a little bit either the structure and the characteristic of the original Soave, but it's a very good wine, this. As this wine is, you can think how long you can keep this wine. As it is, it's a wine that you can keep a few more years. Soave is not a wine to age very long. Could be another 2-3 years, but it's wine that, why? Because it has been into barrique, and the barrique gives something more to the structure to help the wine also to age a bit more. In this case, it's possible to do it. It's a wine that, as all white wines, you can drink as aperitif, but for this one, I would suggest to not drink as aperitif. Would be better with some, what we call the first dishes with pasta or rice, including as a seasoning, also some meat or some fish, but would be good mainly with main courses, fish main courses, and also white meat, both of them. And well, you don't eat cheese here, but some cheese, they could be good with this kind of wine. As should be served around 12 degrees centigrade. Not too cold, not much more. This would be the right temperature, 12, even 12 to 14 because of the structure that has been given by the barrels, the small barrels. So the red wine, it's a Chianti. Now that Chianti has okay. There are several appellations of Chianti. Chianti di OCG, this is Chianti Classico. Then there are other areas with the name of Chianti and the name of the area. This is Chianti Colli Senesi. Colli means hills. There are Colli Fiorentini, Colline Pisane, and many other colli in Tuscany. Siena is the town. Chianti Classico is produced between Florence and Siena. That is the area, that is Chianti. The name of the area is Chianti, in fact. That has given the name to the wine. Chianti was born as a wine that we have known for more than 1 century. Was born in the 19th century by Barone Riccasoli. That was one of the ancient family of the area of Chianti. That he was the minister of the agricultural minister before with the Duke of Florence and then with the King of Italy, that made the new formula to make the Chianti. That is being used for a long, long time. That was 2 red grapes, mainly Sangiovese, and 2 white grapes. Because it was made in a different way. Chianti is produced nowadays. Nowadays, Chianti is produced mainly with Sangiovese. For Chianti Classico, it's only Sangiovese, 100% or just a little bit of Merlot sometimes, up to 20%, but normally they use only very rarely. Or especially with Selezione, it's the top one, it's only Sangiovese. Or in the other areas with Canaiolo, that is the other red grape, Trebbiano and Malvasia, that are the 2 white grapes that are used also for Vinsanto. But I said it was a different style of Chianti that nowadays we know, because Chianti was also sometimes a fizzy red wine. It was sometimes like sort of a claret. It was a wine to be drunk young, and sometimes, especially for the Classico, to be aged for many, many years. So now, different concept of Chianti nowadays. So this Chianti Colline Senesi, Colline Senesi are between the best areas for production of Chianti. And I could say also that Chianti is probably the most well-known name of wine in the world for Italian wines. But because Tuscany is important as a region and everything from Tuscany is important. So you can see the color. The color is not really a ruby. It's a ruby turning into garnet. That is typical from Sangiovese. You can see if you move the wine to the glass, that makes also that I didn't talk before, the arches. The arches or the tears. That indicates also the polyalcohols of the wine and the alcohol, of course, all together. So it has a fluidity, is not too fluid. It has a good consistency, you could say. And by the color, you can see, because of the hints, still a bit violet, yes. That is still a young Chianti. In fact, it's 2020. The aromas are aroma, I could say, typical of a Chianti. Typical of a Chianti, what does it mean? It's fruity, bit of flowers, and sometimes a little bit of spicy. As a fruit, you can recognize the prunes, the cherry, black cherries. As aromas, you have the violets, for example, what is called ginestra, I don't remember it's a red, yellow flower, don't remember in English. And some spicy. That are yes, it's quite fine. So spice, there are some mainly black pepper. On the taste, you have the first sensation is the structure, the acidity, the tannins that are there. It's served. This is served at the right temperature. It's a little bit fresh. It's exactly how it should be. This kind of Chianti. You can look again. The arches are very close between each other. So it means the alcohol is quite good. It's quite high, it means. Because of the temperature, you can feel the tannins are just a little bit astringent, just a little bit of bitterness at the end. The persistency is medium to long. It's quite good. It's not, I could say, it's not the top Chianti, but it's a good Chianti, this one. When I drink it, I can say it's a good Chianti. A Chianti like this, it's a Chianti that you can drink through the whole meal, starting from the appetizers, mainly with what we use in Italy, charcuterie. This is typical. All kind of charcuterie. First courses, mainly pasta with meat sauce. And main courses like, again, red meat and medium aged cheese. Sheep cheese, pecorino. It's a wine that, as for 4 years, you can still have the potential in this wine for another, I could say another 2-4 years easy. 2020 was a good vintage. So it's a wine that is, it has value to be bought and to keep in a wine cellar for making good suggestion for good pairing to the customers. The last one is the typical Moscato d'Asti. Asti is a town, maybe you know, it's a town in Piemonte, not far from the Langhe. Moscato is a very typical sweet wine, aromatic sweet wine that in Italy is mainly drunk during the winter to pair with desserts, but also in summer because, you know, it has 5, I don't know this bottle, but normally it's 5 degrees maximum. Yes, 5.5. It doesn't have a lot of degrees, so you can drink, it's easy to drink it. And pairing this wine, it's mainly with sweets that have some cream on it because of the carbon dioxide that helps the match. So the color you can see it's a yellow-greenish color. Moscato is another wine that has to be drunk as it is young, but you can keep also for many years. It ages very, very well. I have some good examples also at home, even with 20 years, perfect. But no, the tradition is like this, to drink like this. It's fizzy. Normally you don't find an Asti, Moscato d'Asti sparkling with a lot of pressure because it doesn't need it. It's also difficult to the vinification because of the sugars, because it has a lot of sugars. In fact, the methodology to produce Asti was already made in the 19th century because it was difficult to keep the bubbles and to re-ferment because normally what they do, they keep the must during the few months, and then when they need, they ferment for 1-2 months and it's ready. It's what they do for this kind of wine to keep, but they have to keep, you know, when there is sugar, it's difficult because it could re-ferment at any time. So the aroma, you can see the aromas, you can smell, it's aromatic. The aromatic is typical of a Moscato. It has good intensity, persistence, also a little bit of persistency on the nose. It's a quite fine and good quality nose with mainly aromatic herbs, fruits, and flowers. You can have a lot of them here. Normally we say, for this kind of wine, we say that it has sage, rose, apple, pineapple, rosemary, and other herbs. On the taste, the first sensation is the sweetness of the sugars. because Moscato has over 50 grams of sugar, residual sugars. And it's sweet, but it has a good balance with the acidity and the carbon dioxide. And that's why it's very pleasant to be drunk. It's very smooth in the mouth, and it has a medium to long persistency because either the variety but also the sugars, they help the persistency to be there. And the quality on the taste is quite interesting. Normally it's a wine that we don't drink as aperitif. This kind of aromatic sweet wines, we don't drink it as aperitif. And the most typical match is with what is called panettone. That is the sweet for Christmas. But some of them, yes. Sure. Okay, do you like this wine? In the end, sweet. Do you have any question about these wines?
How can you see it's fizzy just from the eye?
No, here I couldn't see it. In fact, I didn't talk about it. No, on the mouth. Because when you don't see... No, here I didn't see it. In fact, in the mouth there is a little bit. Not too much. Because it's just fizzy, this. It's not a sparkling one. No, sometimes you can see sometimes, but no, it depends of the cork. It depends of the glass. It depends of the temperature. A lot of things. It's like some sparkling wine. Sometimes you don't see really the bubbles too much, but when you have in the mouth, you have them. They are there. Here is the same. You don't see almost anything in the mouth. Not too much, but there are some. I have to agree, there are not too many. Are you ready? I have to read too because the art is the most legitimate source of education in the world. I have to say this. Of course, I work for it, so I have to say it. No, but I say because for only one reason. In the world, there are other organizations that they do exams. You know which one they are. So I don't want to talk about the others. We have to talk about us. So that's why I say the ASI. And then I explain why. It's not only because I say it, but why. Now, let's go on step by step. Tutorials have been produced to explain these competencies to all sommeliers. And where do you find these tutorials? On the ASI link, on this ASI link. You go to the ASI website and you find all these tutorials. Okay? Now let's go back to the first sentence. Why do I say that? Because many years ago, other organizations, they didn't do what they do nowadays with exams and certification and pins and so on. And they came, you were not there. They came for 1, 2, 3 years, they came to the ASI. They participate to all events, all meetings. They wanted to do something with ASI, and they proposed to do something they never did, but they learned a lot of things that we were doing and we were not doing. This was important. What we were not doing, so they started to propose certification, international certification in the world. Slowly, but this is what they did. Because they studied us what they did, what we did, we didn't, and they started to do it. That's why in 2000, also in ASI, there was a proposition to do this kind of things that we are doing nowadays, of course, since 14 years now. But it was not, probably it was too early for many, at the time, many presidents, they didn't understand the problem and they didn't accept to go on. After 20 years, they understood that somebody else did. Oh, look what they do. Why don't we do it? So, fortunately, Tasaki arrived. He said, we have to do, yes, it's time to do it. It was time to do it. That's why we started to do this kind of, this certification and exams. But, you know, ASI doesn't do training, doesn't do real education at the moment to prepare to the exams. It's possible to do, I'll give you an example. In Italy, I do always a seminar to prepare sommelier to the exams, because they are not everybody is ready to do the exam, for which is the reason. As is a certification, this is called certification and diploma, to certify what you are already doing in your profession at different level. So there is not a wine course or a training to get a certification. We certificate what we were already. I repeat, at the moment. One day maybe there will be something else. Not now. And that's why we started in 2012 to do this, to prepare this. Now, let's start with the first certification. That is, we could say, is the entry door to the sommelier qualifications. We have started already 1 year ago. In some countries, they use this certification for making the selection for their sommelier for competitions, for example. Because also the way that tests are made, they are made in a scientific way, I could say. For this kind of certification, certification 1, there is one period that is possible to do it. At the moment, what I'm talking is only in this moment. Maybe in the next year something could change, but at the moment it's like this. From April to November. Language of the written test is French, English, and Spanish. But the National Association, for example, Saigon Sommelier Association, can request the test that it could be done in your language if justified by a large number of candidates. Why this? But it's not, well, there is some technical things to do first. For the simple reason that the first certification, but also the others, it's to help young people to enter into the profession. And sometimes we have seen that in some countries, the language is it's an obstacle in English, yes, for many of them. So we decided that it was possible to do in different languages, but there are some rules to follow. That's why now I'm not going to explain all these kind of details, but it's possible to do it. This is one first important difference between ASI certifications and other certifications that are only in English. So it's possible, in fact, it would be possible to do in all languages. That is important. The beginning, this is the beginning. Competencies that are required. Test the ability of a candidate to be able to perform her or his duties as a commis sommelier in most environments and to be able to confidently and comfortably serve any domestic and international clients. In fact, the test is not, what I say, is not difficult because there are only 100 questions. And there's not so many because there are multiple choice, sorry, word in English, multiple choice. So it's not so difficult. There is one difficulty. That the subjects, there are several subjects that you have to know. This is the only difficulty, because as it is international, it can be only on France, on Italy, it's worldwide, the questions. Even if the test itself is not difficult, but you must know something. But it's only written. And we give 1 hour to, in fact, this year it was 1 hour and a half. But if you know all the answers, in 20 minutes you do it. And even 1 hour is too much, even too much, because you know or you don't know. So it doesn't take so long to cross, just to put a cross. You know, so anyway, 1 hour and a half for the moment. Let's see next time how it will be. General knowledge is what this is what could make a little bit of difficulties, because there are products, recipes, viticulture, vinification. So the question could be various kind of questions: grape varieties, service, etiquette, wine tasting protocols, stock management, customer care, food pairing, brands, and so on. So it could include several things. That's why you have to know something at least, even if it's not difficult. Anyway, I give you another two anecdotes. In Italy, they do for two kind of courses. For people already working, that they are third level as a sommelier, they do also the first level ASI, and 8, 7 on 10 they pass the exam. I do also for schools, students in schools, and 5 on 10 they pass. So not so many, but it's already good. It's a way to start to be in an international contest, I could say, of the profession. So the question, they cover a wide spectrum of topics: global wine knowledge, service, tasting vocabulary, professional sommelier skills, maps. There is always one map, sometimes two maps. You have to recognize some areas. Always you have to remember something, that for this kind of test, all tests, first level, first certification, second certification or diploma, questions are always made on classical products. Nothing specific, something that is difficult or that you only some people know, because it's an exam. You have to know general knowledge, and exams is not like competitions, because for exams people they can pass. You know, there are percentages that I wrote later. The percentage to pass the exam. For competition is different, because questions, everything must be very, very difficult, because there is only one winner. So it must be the best in everything. This is the main difference, important, huge difference this. Here are the how are made the test. So wine knowledge is 45%. Oh, there is also possible according to the, okay. Viticulture and enology 10%, spirits 10%, sommelier skills 25%, and other beverage 10%. So there is almost scientific way to make the questions in the good proportions. And the pass rate required is 65%. So 100 questions, if you answer right at 65, you pass the test. Now, this is the way to answer. There is this kind of I don't know, I don't know how to call it. You have the questionnaire, the test, and you have to put the answer here to make black one of these rounds. It's very easy also for the correction. No possibility to make mistakes. And this is the certification that people can get after the exam, if they pass the test. Now, certification 2. The exam period is from September to November. This is because we have to satisfy the north part of the globe and the south part of the globe. This is the reason why it's like that, all this. It's not just a choice. Competencies, it means it meant to assess the competencies of a professional sommelier able to function as a fully competent sommelier. So it's somebody that is already into the profession and already works on the floor. General knowledge, products, recipes, viticulture indication, again like before. Subjects are the same, but I will show you how the questions are made in one moment. The focus is on brands, products, recipes, known or distributed globally. Exam subject part 1. So the wine knowledge covers 70% of the theory. Major grape varieties, hybrids and crossing, winemaking process, different closure, bottle sizes, viticulture, pests and diseases, PV, etc., food and beverage pairing, knowledge of international cuisine and styles, beers, raw materials, major styles and food pairing. Then there is sake, liqueurs and spirits, water, mineral water, coffee, tea, classic cocktails, service protocols, ASI history, wine history and culture, wine personalities. So could be one question of this, not just one maybe. It's just to make a good written test. Then there is the practical part. Because the format of the assessment consists in 3 parts that all need to be passed successfully. The exam test, 1 theory paper that we have just seen how to make the questions, of up to 100 questions. Up to 100 questions, it means it goes from 60 to 100. It's not 100. For the first one, it's 100, finished. For this one, could go from 60 to 100. With maps, multiple choice and open answer, questions, grids, pictures, recipes, a written blind testing, so you see the blind testing starts the written blind testing, as I explained before, of 1 classic international wine, and the identification of 3 international mainstream spirits. International, what does it mean? Could be cognac, whiskey, rum, so something really classical. 1 service task involving a wine service, still or sparkling, and the food pairing in written or oral form. It is essential to demonstrate the ability to know how to sell any type of drink. So on the second certification, it's important to show that you are able to sell something. Now I give you an example that was when I worked, was young. I said the first restaurant, there was not the sommelier, there was a chef de rang that used to do like a sommelier. And he was a very, not very good, a really extraordinary seller. He used to do something like this, said, look at the wine list, which wine, now look at this wine, any wine. The next customer will come in, he will drink it. He did, every time. Rarely he couldn't manage it. He was so able, so good in convincing the customers that the customer said yes, all the time. So this is how we don't pretend like that, of course, but to show that you are able to sell. You have to convince the customer every time that he's going to drink the best beverages that you are going to propose, or even if he chooses anyway. But if you propose something, you have to be able to convince. For something that maybe you know or you don't know, but you have to be good in selling. And this is what we expect from the certification too. So in any kind of test, you have to show this kind of ability. Now, how does it work? For the first examination, you have seen that there was a sheet that you have to fill, and then it goes to the SI, they will give you the answer. In just a few days, you have the answer. For this one, it's different because theoretically, there should be a member of the commission present to do the exam. But as it has a cost, and it's not possible always to do it, it will be on streaming. And everything should be also recorded in a video to make sure that nothing is done wrong. So there will be a member of the commission in streaming and somebody locally that has been already passed the exam, the diploma, gold diploma, to be as a reference for the commission. And the exam should be done like this. So from the morning till the evening, because it takes all day to do something like that. It's not so something that you do in few minutes. So the pass rate required is 60%. So 65 for the first level, 60 for the second level, because in fact it's more difficult, it's much more difficult. Languages, so again, it could be in the 3 official languages, but as before, it could be done in your language. If there is the number, because the number it means, because we have to do translations. And translation takes time, and sometimes all this takes time and cost. So this is the main reason why we need at least a certain amount of people to justify the cost. And this is the certification number 2. Diploma. There is only one day. Next year will be 7 of March, but I know that you will not do this for next time. It's only once a year, the same day all over the world. Exactly the same day. So everybody does the same exam. No possibility to copy. We have to exclude it. Competencies. The Diploma Sommelier is certifying the competencies of professional sommelier achieving an internationally recognized standard of service. So those that have already, I say, a good experience. Because here there is, again, practical test, written test, a practical test. That's why it's important, the experience. Because not enough experience is more difficult to pass it. Even if it is in 3 levels, because we have gold, silver, and bronze. But of course, the level is made by the scores, of course. General knowledge, the environment of the SI diploma examination is always considered to be taking place in a fine dining environment. So the idea is always where the sommelier should work. The best place where he should work is the fine dining restaurant. This is the right place that we imagine the sommelier is working, because all the tests are made thinking about that kind of situation with that kind of customer, sommelier, food, wine list, wines, and so on. Specific knowledge assessed, practical skills. So practical skills, management skills, knowledge of the hospitality industry, tasting skills, food and drink pairing, theory knowledge, wine production countries. Of course, it includes all countries of the world. That is one of the difficulties, to have a really huge knowledge. The format of the assessment consists of 2 parts that all need to be passed successfully. The first part is theory. Second part is only practical test. Minimum level required to graduate for the SI diploma, bronze 60%, with 40%, this is more complicated, 40% minimum of theory, because there is a lot of theory here. Silver 65% with 45% minimum of theory. Gold 75 with 50% minimum for theory. How does it work? This must be always a gold sommelier already present, and all tests recorded on video. All tests, they go to the commission. That there are some, well, I could say, some of them, they are specialized on checking the videos, some in other things, and they make, at the end of this, it will take around 1 month, 1 month and a half. They meet together and they discuss about the scores, about what they've done, and they can tell you it's not only a mathematical thing, because you can do, everybody can do it. There is the discussion, like it's done normally in a school, to discuss about the level and what they've done, checking word by word everything they've done. It could be that sometimes it happened that some sommelier, they were under the level of few scores, and we passed them. We gave even more scores for silver, either for gold, because every year is not the same. So every year we have to adapt at the situation that is all around the world. Now, one of the tests that is very important, I will come in a moment. So what about the language? That is the same system that has been adopted for the competitions now. So a bonus system is in place, applied to reward candidates who participate in a foreign language. What does it mean? That if you do the test in one of the 3 official languages, okay, you have all the scores. But if you don't do it in one of these languages, in your own language, you can't get the bonus. So you get the bonus if you do in French, English, or Spanish. Otherwise, you don't get the bonus, so you lose some scores. It's not a lot, but of course, it could change the level sometimes. Now, the exam takes place in 2 stages, as I said. Written test in total 175 minutes. Written description and identification of international wine served blind. So you don't know what it is. As I said, all classical products. No tricks here. Identification of local beverages, add international spirits, liqueur, fortified wines. A questionnaire focused on the main wine production countries, beer, spirits, and everything, in fact. And then the last one, you see, an essay on a topic relating to the sommelier profession. And this is quite tough, especially in some countries. But I'll show you how to do it. Second stage, oral and practical test in total 15 minutes. Marketing, selling, you see, selling is important. Practical work, decantation, service of a bottle of wine. Testing and food and wine pairing. So how to learn all this? And this is the diploma. If you go, as I said from the beginning, to the website or ASI website, you have the tutorials. Look at them and also look at the grids, because it will help a lot to do a good exam, because you have everything explained there. Of course, you can't read one, so you have to do a few times, you have to memorize everywhere very well, but you have all the tools that you can use to make a good exam. And what is important also for this, that all people that they pass the diploma, there is a list of sommelier published on the website. You can go, you can see all of them. With before there were different qualifications, but you will see all of them. Okay? But to be there is one very important thing. You must be member of your association. If you are not, the association can ask the SI to cancel the name. That is logical. Must be like this. Now, 3 examples of questions. So the same subject developed in 3 different ways. 3 different levels of difficulties. Example, in which area of Piedmont is Barbaresco DOCG produced? Here you have 4 answers. So you have to cross one of them. Don't answer now. don't risk anything. Now I give you the answer, of course. Okay? You see, it's easy. Sometimes you can guess. You can guess, because you may be, by logic, could be there or there, okay? Now, same subject. This is for level 2. Moment. No, I made a mistake anyway. So, which are the 4 municipalities of Barbaresco? So you have to know, because there is not the answer. It's in red because there is not the answer, you have to know. So these are the 4 municipalities of Barbaresco. There are only 4, so you have to know. They are not 50 like other appellations, only 4. The last one is for diploma. Identify the Barbaresco and Barolo cru, that in Italy are called vigna, but we call cru, but it's not an Italian term, among those listed. So here they are mixed together, and you have to choose which one is Barbaresco and which one is Barolo. So if you know all the 50 vigna, you can give the right answer. Otherwise, so you see the level from the first question is exactly the same subject. And now here you have the answer. Barbaresco, this, and Barolo, this. But now it doesn't matter what is written, but just to show you the difficulties, the level of difficulties. Of course, You have to think about the maps. There are maps, different kind of maps. So you have to look for the appellation. You have to find the right appellation that is missing, for example. There are questions about the selling. How many bottles you need for a service, for example. How many customers. The cost of the bottle. So all these kind of questions I don't show you, but this is in this diploma the level is quite high, of course. And now I have here there is a map just as an example. This is Piemonte Dolcetto, the diocese of Dolcetto. So there is a map like this, but there are no names, or there is one or two names missing, appellation missing, that you find which one it is. That's why it's important when you study the wines to study on maps. Very important. And now, just to finish, I'll show you the essay. That is the most difficult, one of the most difficult tests to do for some countries. Why? Because I suppose you don't have used to do it at school, as we do in Europe. So I know it's more difficult, but if you follow some instruction, you will do very well, as it happens already in other countries. This is an essay that was done in 2015, exactly how it was. Most restaurants do not employ a sommelier. Not yet. In those restaurants, many waiters have to act as a sommelier. Please write 400, 500 words how you could help the restaurateur discover the sommelier, the real expert for beverages and their management, and convince him, her, to engage one. Okay? How to develop an essay? Always like this. Okay? Any kind of essay, introduction to the topic. Like, for example, photograph a situation, of a situation. Most restaurants do not employ a sommelier. Not yet. In those restaurants, many waiters. So, normally when you start, you can repeat what is the same the question. You can repeat. You can develop, but you can repeat. You see? Introduction, memorable, for example, a memorable concept, body, write basic concept. It doesn't matter if you don't write everything, but this is how to, if you do like this, I'm sure you will answer to everything. Develop the concept in a synthetic and or schematic way. Use a single word to express them. Conclusions. So the most important is to start with the sentence that is introducing to the subject. Then you develop, and this is the weak point to develop. Because in an essay, you have to express your own idea. It doesn't matter if it is good or not good for you. It doesn't matter. You have to say what you think about that. Because what we are going to read, what we want to know, if you express your idea, you have to say it. It doesn't matter. You don't have to think, oh, I say something that they don't like. No, it's not like this. We understand, we appreciate all ideas. It doesn't matter. It's an idea. And some of them are really excellent sometimes. Some are just normal ideas. It doesn't matter. But yes, the fact to express what you think, you develop the essay. Easy. Very easy to do it. And don't forget, at the end, the conclusion. So you have written a few things, and then what is your personal conclusion? Just to express another personal point of view. That's it. And also, for example, body, I wrote here, unknown, expensive, not necessary, about the sommelier, because people, they think like that. Wine and beverage ambassador, to express a single word. A sommelier could be a wine and a beverage ambassador, for example. It's a way to express it. Conclusions, write an effective sentence. The sommelier is a dispenser of happiness. We can agree or not, but it could be true. For example, express a new concept that is well supported. Only the professional sommelier can create an event with each bottle, for example. They're just examples. Here there is another one. For health reasons, religion, or car driving, for instance, some guests would like to have the opportunity to drink none or less alcohol during their lunches or dinners. What is your opinion about this phenomenon? Do you feel this would be becoming more common in the future? As a sommelier, how do you anticipate and fulfill these wishes for your guest? And then there are others. Don't forget good writing, nice writing. This is another good point. Sometimes it happens that it's impossible to read what is written. And use always black pencil, because black for to make the scan, it works better than blue. So if it's not possible to read, what happens? No scores. It happens sometimes. Please. It's like in competition, you know. If you, when you answer, if you don't answer clearly, sometimes the jury doesn't understand what you are saying. It happened also. And then no scores, and you lose scores. In an exam, it's not so grave, the situation, because you do a lot of things. But in a competition, you lose. Two anecdotes. Of course, you don't know, and I will not say who. In two competitions, one European competition and one world competition, the winner, in the world competition, he won for two scores of difference with the second one. In a European competition, for half a score. What does it mean? That also for the jury, you had to count 10 times to make sure there were not mistakes. There was a huge problem, I can tell you. But also for the candidates, you know, it's important to not make mistakes, because for a competition, it's important to take care about all small details, because you win on details. It's the detail that makes the difference. There could be either on timing, the time, how long it takes to do a test, less mistakes than another one, and so on. For a test, it doesn't matter if you make 10 points, 20 points of difference, it doesn't change anything. The score is at the end is the same. But competition is very important. So if you have to prepare yourself for an exam, you know how to have to do. For a competition, much more work. And for a long time. All sommeliers that have won a world competition, I can say all of them, including me, it took minimum 10 years to prepare the world competition. So don't think that tomorrow you go and win. If it happens, you are a genius, of course. But could happen. But at the moment, it's not like that. Okay, it takes 10 years because you need study and experience, both of them. This is real, so you can check. It's like that. No. It means that when you do a work, that's what I think at least, you don't do a work and next year you change work, you do another work, and then you change another one. Because in your life you don't build anything. When you start a work, a profession, you have to go on. It means constantly and never giving up. Other important point, never give up about anything. Even if something goes wrong, don't give up. Never. Never, never. Only like this you can win. You can realize all your career and your dreams, maybe. It's not because I don't want to scare them. But just it's the reality. But now, what is excellent is nowadays there are many young sommeliers, they are competing, exams and competing, and this is very positive because, as I said, when I started, there were not many sommeliers in the world. In many countries, there were not sommeliers. Nowadays, there are sommeliers all over the world. So this is, it's important that they are young generation, they do it. And that's why the exams and competition, they become a bit more difficult. That's normal, this. It can be very simple, so simple. But anyway, more difficult it is, more you get a result, more you are satisfied yourself. And then, if you want to transform all this in money, also this, more you get a higher level, more money you get. Any questions?
So on behalf of Saigon Sommelier Association and the VBS operation team, thank you, Mr. Giuseppe, for your inspiration, for your sharing and guiding us to all the information, knowledge and exams. Thank you, Ms. Saiko, Anh Dong Khởi and Jimmy, join our workshop. And thank you all the candidates and the audience. I believe that it's very useful for you in the future and for your exam. Thank you very much and see you tomorrow. Thank you, sir.